You're listening to the Sensuality Project podcast, where the messiness of real life gets sexy, hosted by Stacey Herrera. This podcast is intended for mature audiences only. Episodes contain profane language and topics of a sexual nature that may not be suitable for children. Listener discretion is strongly advised. Welcome to the Sensuality Project podcast. I am your host, Stacey Herrera. I'm so excited about today's episode. Today I am chatting with Adrienne Ero-Phillips. And Adrienne, she's fascinating. She does a lot of things. She is a birth, life, death, and sexuality doula. She is also a multidisciplinary artist and writer. And she's actually currently hosting an event coming up on Tuesday, July 31st called Birthing the New Paradigm. And it's all about how to heal womb space trauma and empower yourself for pregnancy, birth, and parenting. It's amazing. There's a bunch of really amazing guests that she's having conversations with. Wa is among one of them. But I'm really excited because there are several people that I'm really looking forward to hearing their conversations. And I think that it's such an important discussion, talking about like our birth story. In fact, it's one thing that I often invite my clients to do is to look at their own birth story. And if their parents are still, or at least one of their parents is still alive, to share that experience with them, it's fantastic. It's a very, it can be very healing to know your origin story in terms of what your arrival looked like. And sometimes it actually tells some deeper truths about how you function as an adult, which is really fascinating. But anyways, that's among one of the few things that Adrienne and her guests are going to be talking about. So I'm really excited about that. But today, Adrienne is my guest, and we talked about so many juicy things. We talked about slut shaming. We talked about making time for sex as a parent, especially as a new parent, and how that's one of the things that kind of gets postponed or put on layaway when people become parents, is that, we and I'm a parent, so I know it's like that, but we often pour ourselves into our children often at the demise of our relationship. And what's interesting about that is the relationship that we have with our children is the one relationship we willfully enter a relationship with a child knowing that they are going to leave us, which is something unique because we don't really do that in our other relationships, even friendships or, romantic connections. We have a tendency to want to think about forever in terms of being together. And the parent-child relationship is very evolutionary. It changes so much over time. And so anyway, it's really fascinating. And so Adrienne and I talk about that. We also talk about, is there such a thing as bad sex, and also prioritizing mama's needs. Like, right, when you're a mama, there are certain things that you need, but, mothers are often the ones that backburner their wants, needs, and desires for the sake of the collective family unit. So we explore that a little bit also. So it was really a great conversation. I'm looking forward to sharing it with you. And if you are interested in signing up for the Birthing the New Paradigm online summit, it's absolutely free. So I encourage you to do that. You can actually sign up to be able to view every single interview at bit.ly/SHBNP13. And that's in all caps. bit.ly/capital SHB like boy, N like Nancy, P like Paul, 13. And that will get you right on into the goods, and they'll be delivered right to your inbox. It's going to be fantastic. Anyways, I'm going to stop talking. Oh, one more thing. I do want to add that during our conversation, Adrienne was holding her 5-month-old baby. And so you will probably hear him in the dialogue. He was very quiet, actually. It's a very quiet child. So he never cries or anything. Very, 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 very calm and centered soul. But you will hear him, and there were a couple of times where he actually wanted to get in on the conversation, so he kind of tugged on Adrienne's microphone. So there is some background noise that I couldn't edit out, but it's different when you can see on video what's happening. So I'm describing it to you so that you won't be surprised when you hear it. But it doesn't at all take away from the juiciness of this conversation. So enjoy. Oh, All right. Look, I'm so excited. So this morning I was thinking about like what I was thinking about like mothering, and I was thinking about like sexuality and also really like I've been like very turned on this week. So so my brain was all over the place. My brain was all over the place. So, but this morning I went on a walk with my sister. We went for a walk to the library because I had some books to return. And and then we stopped at this little diner and had breakfast. And there's a waitress there that I've seen multiple times, and she's a blogger. So I'd given her like some tips on blogging, and she was telling me that she had done a reading of some of her work at a local coffee shop, but the subject matter of it was about having sex in the back of cars, and how easily, young women get kind of roped into this faux intimacy that is often presented to them by potential partners. I love you, I want to be with you, and then you end up in the back of the car fucking, and then it's a letdown because there is not, the level of intimacy that was perceived. But what got her the most was that the audience was very quiet, and she got the impression that they didn't receive it well, which I told her discomfort is really good. If you make the audience uncomfortable, that's fantastic. But when she went off stage, there was a guy that said, why would you talk about that? Why would you talk about that? And then she also mentioned like someone getting in her car, one of her guy friends being in her car and going in the glove box and seeing condoms there, and then saying like, are you a hoe? So my question is, how do you feel about slut shaming? That was a long-winded thing to get to that, but yeah. So how do you feel about slut shaming from the perspective of those that identify as male and the perspective of those who identify as female? But usually, in my experience, the slut shaming, the onus seems to be on those of us who identify as female.
Yeah. So I think it was maybe in 2007 I read this book called Ethical Slut.
I've read it.
Yeah, you've read it? Yeah. And it really, at that moment in my life, I was really, I was with a partner, my partner that I'm now married to. And at the same time, I was coming out to my family and friends as who I really am, which is a queer woman. And so that, I think communication is the key to any sexual encounter and sexual connection that you have with someone. It's really interesting because this is summer solstice time, and I've also been feeling really sexual and like just, going towards my partner, and I'm finding myself attracted to this other person who is a part of my communities, and really creating a connection with them about a sexual connection at the moment. And so it's quite, interesting that you chose to talk about slut shaming in particular, because, I also live in the Midwest where I think there are layers of existence that I live in that makes me feel like a little bit more quiet about, as open as I am about being queer in a like hetero looking, monogamous looking relationship. It's still something that I would love to be even more forthcoming about. So I'm thankful that you have that question for me. That's what I have to say right now about that.
Yeah, I think that I'm glad that you brought up being in a partnership and also feeling an attraction to someone in your community that isn't your partner, because I think that it's so fascinating. I recently had a conversation with a man, and I was talking about practicing ethical non-monogamy, and this particular person happens to be married and was actually seeking something outside of his marriage without his wife's consent. And when I'm talking about ethical non-monogamy, he gasped. And I said, "Oh, I'm sorry. You are non-monogamous. Your wife is just in the dark about it."
Right. It's all about the consent. It's all about the communication.
Absolutely.
It's all about being very out in the open and having the blessing of this, for me, like we've been together for 12 years. We have 2 children together. I'm married. He's amazing. He has a generous heart and like a soul of his soul is so beautiful. His intellect, his body, like I love my partner. I call him partner. He likes to be called husband. With all my heart, and our souls were supposed to be connected in this lifetime, intertwined, and from the beginning, because we met when we were so young, we were still finding ourselves and finding each other and finding what that meant. We knew that we were supposed to, now we definitely know that now that these two amazing little humans are here, that we were supposed to create life together, and we continue to support each other, in all ways, spiritually, emotionally, financially. All of that is definitely intertwined. And, there's a part of me that always needs to be expressed. That the way that my scenarios are set up feels like of the new paradigm, in the sense that there is a way to be ethical about being in a long-term monogamish.
Yes. Have you seen the documentary? Have you seen it?
No.
Oh, yeah. I saw it on Stars, I think. It was, I forget the guy's name, but he was coming out of a marriage that had dissolved and not really, not really feeling his footing and where he kind of fit in. And then questioning, his own perceptions about what marriage is and what it's supposed to look like. And he interviews a bunch of, people in monogamous relationships, but also in, polyamorous and non-monogamous situations. And he talks to, some therapists, and he gets like all these different perspectives. And it was very interesting. It was very, very interesting. I mean, like Dan Savage, I think is interviewed in it, and a few other notable people. It was really good. But it's called Monogamish. I definitely recommend it.
Wow. Yes. And I was just talking to the person that I'm kind of interested in right now and going on a date with tonight, after talking to my partner at length and getting his blessing and communicating with him at every single step of the way how I'm feeling. And that's even turning our relationship on. And that's always been the case for us, interestingly, is that like whenever I am fully living my full truth, my authenticity, which happens to be queer. Some people would, peg it as bisexual. I sometimes use that term as well. But just like allowing my spirit to fill up as much space as it knows that it wants to in this lifetime, then I'm more turned on, and want to connect with him more. And then our relationship is more flowing. Because whenever you have an orgasm, whenever you connect with, for me, my partner, there's just this important energy that springs forth which is so powerful. Yeah.
Yes. I think that, and there are some people who are naturally monogamous. I mean, I know several people in my life that are serial monogamous, whether they are in a committed relationship or not. If they're dating, it's one person, and that's fine if that's your authentic truth. But I think that there are a lot of people they're continuously trying to fit in this box that is too small to contain them, and then they're being out of integrity, with their partners. Like, so.
Yes. And thank you so much for talking about your authentic truth, because sometimes I get a little sense of like, not jealous, maybe jealousy. I mean, I'm just going to name it. I guess I'm human. I get jealous sometimes of like the fact that they are monogamous, and that just seems so much more simple than the relationship that I exist in. But at the same time, I know that my journey is a bridge person. My journey, I'm in an interracial, intersexual orientation relationship. I mean, that's
a lot.
That's a lot. And then we have these beautiful mixed babies from our union, so it's like, and they feel like the new paradigm, and we will continue to teach both our son and our daughter to be in connection with the integrity of their womb space. And, masculine people have womb spaces as well. And how that will I'm all about healing. So we'll heal, our systems if we can be in connection with our womb space.
Yeah. And I do think there was a time where, the introduction of agriculture had a huge part to play in this design of monogamy, and then of course there's the patriarchy that played into, because monogamy was never about men being monogamous, really. It was always about women being part of the property ownership. And so that, you don't get to covet my stuff, and my stuff happens to have breasts and a vagina, so
that feeling of domination.
Absolutely. But, I think that biologically speaking, neither the male nor the female body is biologically inclined toward monogamy. The male penis, pre-cum is very acidic, and its real purpose is to kill off any sperm that belonged to another man that happened to still be in the vaginal canal.
Wow. Yeah.
If we were designed to be monogamous, why would that be necessary? Because certainly the body wouldn't kill off its own sperm. If it would encourage its own sperm to get there if it was already existing there. So, I don't know that, I do believe, I know for myself, I've had periods of monogamy, and sometimes those periods were long-term. I can't say that it was because of a conscious decision more than it was just kind of unconscious, and that just is how things fell, But I don't think that monogamy is my default. I do not think that that's true for me. But again, it's what's authentic for you. I don't think it ever, based on my history, I don't think it ever was my truth. There have just been these pockets of monogamy that happen.
Even with a person like myself, who I've been married for five years, and I've been in a relationship with the same person for 12. And, my longest period of monogamy has been since we were married these last 5 years. And I can sense my spirit, just needing a connection that is really, I want to give pleasure. I want to give pleasure. I want to just smell a vagina. Oh my gosh. Yes. And still have this amazing man.
Absolutely.
Yeah. With a lot of communication and a lot of checking in and a lot of creation of boundaries that feel good in every single person's, spirit and alignment.
Absolutely.
Consent and, all of those beautiful things that allows for the pleasure to magnify, that orgasm to magnify in a way that is beneficial for humanity, because our orgasms are such a powerful energetic tool of manifestation. Whatever I'm thinking about when I'm in that moment of orgasm, or finding and it's, I want to hear you talk more about how you talk about being in the room, because of my queerness, and I love my partner to pieces, but sometimes my mind wanders to another possibility, a fantasy. So what do you feel about that piece of it?
For me, when I was younger, particularly when I was younger, I had to time travel for an orgasm to be possible. I had to literally think about something other than what was happening in order for me to orgasm. And there were a couple of things that I think that for me that made that so. Part of it was I wasn't grounded in my own body. And the other part was I wasn't because I wasn't grounded in my own body, I wasn't as well versed in my own pleasure. So now that I'm in this space and I occupy my body I'm much more intimate with myself, and I occupy this body very, very differently. Now, for one, there's a different kind of discernment in terms of attraction. And the other part of that is I am so well versed in my pleasure that I can focus my attention on, because my whole life is sensual. So I focus my attention on where I'm actually experiencing pleasure. And that's one of the ways that I keep myself in the room. I also prefer sex with the lights on. And that's because it's hard to time travel when you're looking in someone's eyes.
Yeah.
It's very difficult, but we instinctively want to close our eyes, which is useful because sometimes you feel things more intensely with your eyes closed because your eyes take up the most brain bandwidth.
Right.
And so, and you're taking in so much. So, when we taste something really good, our first thing is to close our eyes. We always want to turn off the sense that's overpowering. That's the reason you turn the radio down when you're trying to parallel park.
Right.
Is that you got to shut off the sense that's taking up too much space for concentration. So it's okay to close your eyes sometimes, but if you're having trouble, like if you find that you're closing your eyes, not because you're trying to feel more, but because you're leaving the room, then you should open them back up. Open them back up and make eye contact, even if you have to ask, even if you have to say like, look at me. Because then it's an invitation to keep your partner in the room also. But if you can, and like sometimes I'm really good about making sure that my partner stays in the room also, because one of the things I noticed particularly, and I have never had an experience with a woman yet. I say that only because when people ask me, am I bisexual? I always say not yet. Only because I've only ever felt my body sexually respond to one woman, and I didn't know her, and I was like, "Oh, there's this new sensation happening." So not yet, but with men, they time travel a lot during sex, and one of the ways that they leave the room is when they are experiencing something that feels good, and women do this too because I've caught myself doing it. But when you're feeling something that feels good, you catch your breath, you hold it. The minute you do that, you leave the room because then your body starts to go into fight or flight and your arousal wanes. So your breath is another thing that keeps you tethered in the room, that you got to keep breathing. And sometimes it's as simple as, again, like if you're focusing on where you're experiencing pleasure. So if that happens to be, on your nipples or on your clit, or if someone's rubbing your back or wherever it happens to be, if you can focus your pleasure there, then you can imagine sending your breath there, which actually enhances the sensation. So now it's feeling more delicious and you're in the room. So just like yoga, follow your breath. Your breath is your anchor always. It's the most powerful anchor that you have. It keeps you anchored in the experience. And it's not that there's anything wrong with, fantasizing, but sex is way more delicious when the fantasy is the pleasure that's happening right now.
Yeah. And that makes me think about communication as well, of communicating with a partner I'm still thinking about looking into my partner's eyes,
So intense, best orgasms ever.
That's a good suggestion. Yes. What about I mean, I love with a long-term, for me, I just, became a mother 2.5 years ago. And this is one of the most trying times in our relationship has been when we haven't had as much space and room to connect sexually as we once had. And we're finally at this point where, my son is 5 months now and my daughter, is in daycare, and we have a few more moments. And also I think, like you were talking about the menstrual cycle and also the cycle of the world, or of the planet Earth, the solstice, I'm feeling more sexually turned on. It's summer. It's like that creativity, that fire, that fullness, it's the full moon right now. And, our energy can wane, both in our own cycles of our menstruation, like you were saying before, and also, with what the season of our lives.
Absolutely.
And just to really honor, I'm trying to honor the fact that this is the season of my life, that my children won't always be, 5 months and 2.5, and both wanting to to breastfeed and, changing 2 pairs of diapers. There will be more time to connect in other phases.
I'm glad that you brought that up, though, because I think that one of the disservices we do as mothers is putting our pleasure on layaway because our kids are small.
Yes.
I'm going to have time. I'm going to do pleasure when, now Does pleasure look different when they're small? Yes. Quickies are not necessarily your preference, but they become your lifesaver. Like, like become your lifesaver. Like, whereas you might love to be able to spend a nice long hour, enjoying each other's body, but maybe you only have 6 minutes, but if you've got 6 minutes, make time for 6 minutes. If like right now, while your kids are still small, if all you can do is the baby's down for a nap, let me give you a blowjob really quick. Do it.
That just happened today, actually.
Do it.
And it was beautiful. Yes. And it was a gift. And it was like, it was a gift. And
absolutely
it's so important to give. And new moms, like sometimes libido is low and, I just don't want anybody to touch me. Right. But those moments that happened today, and I'm so happy it did, because we're in flow and we're being kind to each other and getting each other water and, like communicating in a little bit more, just gentle, loving way that happens after that, that energy is exchanged.
Yes. And I think, women, when we're younger and there are less distractions, whatever that looks like, whether it's kids or work or whatever, like when there are less distractions, we often have spontaneous arousal, and we get suckered into thinking that that's how it's supposed to be, when that's not always how it is. Like you'll go through these phases where your arousal isn't spontaneous, your arousal is responsive. So your body won't even think about turning on until someone starts touching it.
Exactly. Yeah, that's how it feels right now. Well, not right now at this exact moment, but maybe even just like right after the baby was born.
Yes.
And it's like all my attention, my mind, body, and soul is going to this new life, this new amazing little person in the room. So
yes, it's a very, I think that, it's a tricky thing to navigate, but I think that if we always keep in mind that your pleasure is good for everyone in your house, because guess what? Mama's energy determines the energy of the house, period.
Exactly.
You're in a bad mood, guess what? That is hell for everybody that lives in the roof with you.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So like your pleasure, like making time and making your pleasure a priority is the best thing you can do as a mother for your children. It's so important for them, because when mama is turned on, guess what? They get the more fully expressive, they get your full expression, they get your full attention. They get your full power levels. Whereas when your pleasure isn't a priority and you feel splintered and you are, balancing, changing 2 diapers and making sure everybody is eating and the laundry needs to be done and you still got to run a business. When you're trying to do all of those things and your pleasure, tank is on empty, then guess what? You don't have the patience to deal with them. The baby's crying and you more likely to snap or to ignore, or to be, to have more bass in your voice when that's not really how you feel, whereas when you are well fucked, whatever that looks like, because it doesn't have to be penetration, right? Like when you're well fucked, everybody in your orbit benefits.
Yes.
Everybody, your kids they get a better experience. You can love them better when you make your pleasure a priority.
Thank you. Thank you for that.
You're welcome. It's like a, pleasure in whatever form it takes, because, it doesn't have to be orgasm. It can be just, can you please just sensually stroke my thigh while I'm breastfeeding? That feels really good. I would really love it if you kiss the back of my neck right now. Just please.
Right.
Because you're giving a lot and you get to be a receiver. And, he's feeling like the fourth wheel a lot of the time because the kids want mama more, so him being invited into you is great for the relationship. Even if it is just, it would be really, really great if you massage my foot and maybe you want to kiss my toe. That's okay. I would really appreciate that.
Yeah. And for me and my certain place that I am, right, just who I am in the world, like all of the identities that I mentioned before, it's for me making time and space like intentions out into the universe that, the right aligned person will come into my life, and that the stars will align in the universe. And I have, written my desires into the universe, I've drawn and creatively expressed myself, and, what ends up on the page is exactly like, it's a yoni and this like, beautiful, like energy, like red, orange, yellow energy of
all the lower chakras,
the energetic penis, like,
yes.
Like, and just like what it doesn't even have words, but it's like that desire and putting it out to the universe in a creative form, and having it come back to me in a way that feels, like I said before, aligned for everyone involved.
Absolutely.
When you're in a monogamish relationship, like, there is a feeling of, this is my number one priority, is my relationship with, my partner. And mama needs to get, mama misses.
Yes.
That.
Yes.
Mama misses that. Mama wants that. Mama wants to just give and give and give and lick and smell. And
yes, all of the things. And you deserve that. Look, everyone will be happy.
Everything will be in more flow and alignment and integrity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yes. It's a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. So look, what part of your body is asking for further exploration right now?
Good question. I'm a dancer and a mover. So I tend to feel many different sensations on my body all at once. Right now, my breasts are just like, they want a break because I'm breastfeeding 2 children. They're like, they don't want to be touched. So it's interesting that you asked me that question, and I respond with what I don't want. So I'm going to explore that more. And really, what do I want?
Yes. Look, and there's so much terrain, right? Like, there's so much terrain on the body for exploration. Like, my hips are definitely, like, I have been having a hard time with my psoas muscles in the last several weeks. Like, at one point, like, it literally, like, just rubbing my hand, like, on the like, between my hip, my lower back, and like the top of my butt, it was like sensitive to touch. Like, that's how annoyed they have been with me for sitting too much and not moving enough and not fucking enough.
Even those hips, you got to move those hips.
You do.
Yeah,
you really do. So I've been really mindful, about like stretching them in the morning and squatting and like really allowing them to lengthen. Today I went on a long walk, but I want some man's hands on them. Like that's my desire. So I think I love that you are giving your desires language. I think that it's so important. It's so easy, especially like, again, like, your top priority is mothering, but it's so easy when you're in that space to put your desires that are outside of that role, to put those on the back burner. We do it. We've seen it. That's what we've watched women do for so long, but we've seen the results. We see the burnout. We see the women that their wells are so empty and they keep grasping at straws and trying to source from these things outside of themselves, not even aware that the well that will replenish and fulfill them is inside.
Right. And we see also the systems that result, and that just feels so epic to me, that like our pleasure is like literally what everyone needs in the world.
Yeah.
Like, we'll start to change the world, change the way that we exist within our partnerships, within our relationships, within our communities, by being our fullest selves, by being our most vibrant, authentic selves, our most embodied selves.
Absolutely. And pleasure is nourishing. Pleasure. I mean, all kinds of pleasure. I mean, even when you're eating, if you're eating something that your body is asking you for, and say it happens to be greens, your body is like, I really need some more green in my life, or, we really need to eat more roughage. When when you are eating the thing, whether you love it or not, like feeling nourished is pleasurable.
It is. Yeah.
It's pleasurable when you wake up the next day and your bowels are not angry. Like, when you're watching your skin clear up because you're drinking more water and you're hydrated, even if that's not your favorite beverage. Like, you don't have to love water for it to be helpful. Like, it's, when you're nourished, it's pleasurable. It's pleasurable to see your body's response to the things that nourishes you.
Yes. I recently just have had it in my mind that I need to get a better water filter because my body has just been craving water without fluoride, we've been drinking basically tap water with a small little filter, but I got this big ultra Berkey filter. And I am so like in tune with that moment of drinking this incredibly clean water. And I'm just have so much gratitude and can feel the cells of the water just, vibrate with that sense of great gratitude and like presence with like the fact that this is clean water. And my body is vibrating at a higher frequency because I'm giving my body this clean water.
Absolutely.
It's also such a important piece of.
Look, and what a privilege to be able to buy a filter. Like, it's easy for us to take something that simple for granted. Where there are, places on the planet where clean water, what is that? Like they literally have no concept to even look through a glass and see through the other side. There are places that is not a thing,
right.
So what a gift it is to be able to drink clean water. And for people that don't have that privilege, they've got prayer and intention because it'll change the molecular structure of water really quickly. And we can ask, before we put anything in our mouths. Like I'm really mindful about, I never ever say to myself, I shouldn't be eating this. The reason is because the minute I say that, my body will process whatever it is like I should not be eating that.
Yes.
But if everything, this morning I had pancakes with lots of butter. I love butter. And I prefer butter to syrup. So I had lots of butter, and I had just like a couple of days ago, had a conversation with someone who's had like a triple bypass, in the last several years, and was talking about like clogged arteries and stuff. And as I was slathering the butter on these pancakes, I thought, this butter is going to nourish me. And this butter my body is going to receive this butter, and it's going to use it to the fullest capacity for whatever use it has inside of me. And I enjoyed it.
Yes. I love that.
And I thoroughly enjoyed it. I do not have high cholesterol.
Yes.
But I think our intention is so important. And we're taught it accidentally, like a lot of us who grew up in religious experiences, whatever that looked like, where praying over your food was part of what you did. It was part of the ritual. But no one really explained how prayer over your food can shift the food for you.
Exactly.
And it doesn't have to be attached to a deity. You know what I mean? It could just be, it's
about the vibration.
Absolutely.
Of the intention.
Absolutely. Yes. It makes all the difference. It makes all the difference. Look, I'm excited for you to have this clean water.
Thank you. Yes. I just took a drink as we were talking.
It's going to be so refreshing. Yeah. So do you think that there is a such thing as bad sex?
Ooh, that's a good question. Recently I've been thinking of like being conscious or unconscious, of being unconscious or conscious. And so I don't know if it's bad or good, but I guess as we're talking about it, are you checked out or are you checked in to the experience at hand?
Yes. That makes a difference.
Right. And I guess checking into I think I would say definitely if the sexual exchange is not in a part of a consensual agreement, I think that might constitute bad sex, because that's then out of alignment and can hurt and cause trauma for another person. So I would say that would be bad sex with that is outside of alignment and outside of consent.
What if there is consent and at the end you just kind of feel like,
well, yeah, I would say, as a person in a monogamish relationship, there's been amazing 100%, 150, like mind-blowing, orgasmic, like connected to the cosmos kinds of sex, and there's been some like, oh, I'm just really tired, like, but I still want to connect kind of sex, which I would say that would be more on the, better than nothing.
Yes.
But not like, I think there's a gamut, a range.
I agree. When I think about like the experiences that my younger self perceived as bad, the things that had a tendency to make me perceive it that way were really about whether or not I was in the room, whether the other person was or wasn't in the room, and whether or not I actually felt a connection with the person or not.
Right. Yes. Exactly.
Like I'm so much more generous in my perception, even if it's something that, like if it's something like, oh, it was over really quickly, or maybe there wasn't as much, pleasure as I would have liked. Mm-hmm. Or, if I feel connected to the person, I am much more generous in my perception of the experience than if I don't. I'm much more of a harsh judge and critic when I don't feel connected. I mean, but that's true in and out of the bedroom.
Right. Yeah. 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 I would completely agree with that. And I think that I'm a person that is slow to open up to sexual experience. Mm-hmm. But when I do, like you get me full on, like when I make that decision that you are someone that are worthy of my goddessness, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like then it, that's what it is.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always liken connection to, I'll say like, I would never let a stranger pull their car into my garage. Exactly. If I don't know you, I'm not going to be like, oh yeah, you can park in here. Like, no, and consequently, if I'm the owner of a car, I don't want to park in a strange garage. What if I can't get my car back? Mm-hmm. So like when it comes to like connecting and, especially if you identify as a woman and receiving someone inside of your body.
Yes.
It is connection is a good thing, I mean, now that's not a requirement for everyone. And if it isn't a requirement for a listener, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. There's no shame in that not being a part of the criteria.
Mm-hmm. I identify also myself as like kind of a demisexual. I think that term means like being intellectually turned on, like by like intellectual stimulation as well. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I'm like, it would be nice to just be able to find, a woman who I don't feel like I have to like connect with 100% in order to like get that sexual experience that I've been fantasizing about for 5 years, Mm-hmm. But that's just, not my experience, and that I need to feel like I have some sort of connection to your spirit, to that person's spirit. And that often for me comes from talking to them, having conversations like this, creating an intimacy that has nothing to do with physicality yet.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But to really connect on this philosophical, emotional, spiritual, like where, what are you trying to do in the world kind of feelings of like, are we on the same page with what kinds of, for me, like, really birthing the new paradigm and falling away from the old paradigm that's, rooted in all these patriarchy, white supremacy, cis-normativity, heteronormativity, and really going into the spaces of creatriarchy and equitable sovereignty and, like radical respect and inclusion. And yeah.
I agree. I'm one of those people too. I have to feel like we can have a conversation before I can really feel attraction, like physical attraction. There have been a few exceptions, like I've had a couple of experiences where my body was attracted to someone before I even had a chance to have a conversation with them. Even back to that one woman that I said that I felt a sexual attraction for, I was surprised because I was in the produce department of Trader Joe's, and
I was just there yesterday. Yes.
Yeah, and she happened to, she worked there. And I was holding a cup of, I'd had some of the sample coffee, which I had been like drooling over in my mind before I got there. I was like, oh, I can't wait to have a cup of coffee. And I was holding an empty cup, and she said, I can throw that away for you. And it stopped me in my tracks not because she was asking me. I literally had 0 words. Like she must have thought I was crazy because I literally froze, but it was because I felt this huge surge of attraction in my body. And I was like, what the fuck is that? And I was like, oh my God. And then I said, yes, she could take my cup. And we later ended up having a conversation. And the whole time we were talking, I was feeling like all of this buzz in my body. It didn't go any further than that, but I was like, wow, this is new. It was so intense. It felt great, but it was so intense that I was like, wow, that hadn't happened to me before. So every now and then, as it turns out, we had a great conversation. The exchange that we had ended up being great. So she was able to nourish that too. But it's only been a few times that I can think of in my lifetime where I've had a physical attraction to someone before I knew whether or not I could have a conversation with them. The other recent time that it happened, it was with a gentleman, and he was so attractive, and my body was so attracted to him. But I knew it was short-lived because I could not have a conversation with him.
Right.
He wasn't interested. He wasn't curious. He was way too he was the center of every universe in his mind. And he could not really be he couldn't be present with anything that wasn't really centered around him. And so I was so disappointed. I was like, fuck, he's so cute. But it couldn't be anything because of that.
Yeah, that makes me think of this person that I'm actually going into a full moon ceremony with them tonight, just me and them, and just us two. And when I first looked into their eyes, it was an Italian meetup group, Italian ancestry meetup group, and I felt like I knew them from a different lifetime. We've since then figured out that we're both Scorpio, Gemini. We have similar astrological makeup, and so I just, looking into their eyes, we kind of do this Scorpio stare down thing. And so I totally hear what you're saying about there's sometimes a familiarity with a person before you actually have that, spiritual, intellectual conversation that is maybe connected to your womb space intuition of what you are in flow and going into your life with, and what you want to manifest in your life. And so there's definitely that I feel like, we can have met in other lifetimes, at least in part.
Absolutely.
I believe that anyways,
I receive that. I believe that no's live in the solar plexus, but yeses live in the womb.
Ooh.
Because when I feel, when something is not for you, or you're in danger, you feel that so powerfully in your solar plexus, in your gut. It feels like something is being wrung out of you. Like your body is saying, this is not okay. But when something is a yes, your solar plexus doesn't really say anything. Sometimes you know what I mean? If it experiences nervous sensations, when it's apprehensive or even excited, But when something's a holy yes, the solar plexus is silent as hell. But not the womb, not the sacral.
Right.
That's where yes lives.
Yes. Oh, I love that. Oh, I'm going to take that away from today. Thank you for that.
Yes lives there. I mean, when you think about it, yes is usually creative. whatever it's creating, whether it's creating a relationship or whether it's creating a baby or a new program or, whatever, like yes is creative.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so it makes sense that yes would live there.
And do you think that the no is kind of like, because our solar plexus is so connected to, our light, does a no feel like a contraction of your light? Or I don't know, that's just how I'm interpreting it right now, but what does that mean for you about?
I think that no is, I think that no is a contraction, but I don't perceive it as negative. I don't think that no is inherently negative. It's not, you know what I mean? Like we give it a negative connotation, but no itself is neutral.
Right.
No just means not right now, or this isn't for me. It doesn't mean no is bad. It just means this isn't resonant for me. And sometimes it means this isn't resonant for me in this moment. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to, because sometimes no isn't forever. Sometimes no is maybe later, but it's still no right now, even if I'm considering it for another time, right now, the answer is no. So it's not inherently negative to me. It's neutral. It's whatever we decide that it is. And so we have to stop deciding that no. And this is particularly important for people like you and I, where, no's are very much of part of our livelihood. Right? Yeah. Like dealing with clients and everything. There's lots of no's. But how many times have you had someone say no and then they circle back to you? Like, that happens. So no is not inherently negative, and we have to stop giving no a bad rap. No is not a negative thing. It's neutral.
Thank you. Yes, no is neutral. Yes, thank you.
No is neutral. I mean, and the body just happens to, because for whatever the reason that something isn't resonant in that moment, the body cannot lie to you. So it's not necessarily, I mean, there are some no's that your body gives you that is as a warning, because danger is imminent. You know what I mean? But that's not true for everything. So it's wired. I think that it's hardwired into our defense, the defensive part of ourselves, just for the sake of self-preservation. And also because, the cells in our body have millions of years of intel. And there was a time when our ancestors needed to run, so. Right. So I think that that's the reason that it shows up there, is because I think that part of our nervous system is the most primitive part. And it's the part of us that's about our survival. It's the part that allows us to go on. And I think that that's why no's are so much louder than yeses in terms of sensation in the body.
Right. And no's are also a yes to maybe your more aligned path as well, which we can really celebrate.
Absolutely.
As well.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Oh, this is good. This is good. Well, I want to mind your time, but I want to ask you one more question. And I think this question will be good in case something delicious happens on your date tonight. So, everything's possible, just in cases. But how do you like to be cared for after sex?
I love looking into a person's eyes, and I love kisses on the forehead and just sweet caresses.
Like I'm feeling all of that. I'm feeling all of that. Mm-hmm. That's my favorite question, because so often, back when we were talking about like what's good sex and what's bad sex, but a lot of times our perception of a sexual experience is completely dependent on how it ended. Even if it was mind-blowing and you were riding waves of multiple orgasms, if the person disconnects or disengages at the end, all of those things go to shit, because all you remember is that they checked out. They left the room when it counted.
Right. Staying in it. Yeah. Being in the room.
Yes.
Yeah. Kissing the third eye, looking and staring at each other's eyes, and just sending gratitude and love into their soul.
Absolutely. Do you practice calling all your energy back after a sexual experience?
Ooh. When I was not married, I had a few experiences that I purposefully went to an energy healer after an experience with, my partner experiencing another person before we were married, and that energy being a part of our energy. So I did practice, going to a healer and, divvying out the energy. But that question is quite interesting in the context of my more monogamish relationship, where my life is very intertwined with my partner. And so I do not do that on a regular basis because my partner is so intertwined in my life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think sounds like I should really be more intentional about, making my own, actually, I am pretty good at making my own energy body a priority. With various, I burn a lot of, incense. I burn a lot of sage and Palo Santo, and burn frankincense, and do a lot of work with energy clearing myself, pranic healing. So yes and no. I think I could be even more intentional about it. And yes, I do definitely practice making my whole being the vessel that is complete love generating from myself, and then creating a energetic kind of permeable boundary of love going out, and being really strong about who and when and how I let other people's energy in. And for that reason, most of the time that I have a sexual, experience, it is extremely aligned already, because I feel like I've done that kind of energetic work previously to make sure that, the exchange was aligned. Like I keep going back to that word. How about you?
I wasn't intentional for a really long time. And then I was haphazardly intentional for a time. And I'm a lot better at it after becoming in contact with Sophia Wise One. And we had a conversation, and she talked about, me too. She's so amazing. She's so amazing. But she had told me that was a practice that she and her then wife would do at the end of their experiences together. And it had not occurred to me to do it with people that I felt connected with, because it was more like something that I did to kind of shake off something with somebody that maybe I wasn't as aligned with. So like, right. I can't say that every single time, because I'm not, sometimes I'm too busy riding the aftershocks of of the experience. But I try to be mindful about, calling my energy back and returning energy that doesn't belong to me. Even with the people I love, even in non-sexual experiences, like sometimes, like before I go to sleep, the last thing that I'll do is call all my energy back and return anything that doesn't belong to me before I drift off to sleep.
Yes, I love that. That's beautiful.
Yeah. It's so, I think especially when you're a giver, it's so easy to leave a lot of your energy hanging out there and then wondering why you're all depleted. Like, I'm so tired. I'm so tired, but it's like sometimes, it's even as like, as space holders, as working with other people, especially, doing work that involves, people's emotions and their energy. We have to get really much better after we've held a container about calling our energy back afterwards.
I would like to add something to that. One of the practices that is such a quick way to release energy is to and gain your own energy as well as Magaya's energy is like literally to hug trees.
Oh yes, I am a tree hugger.
Yes, I mean, And it's so, in the old paradigm, it's cliche. In the new paradigm, we are actually exchanging with a living being, and we are allowing their being we are allowing the energy that doesn't need to be in our being to this really amazing being that is a tree being. And we can just give anything that isn't ours to the tree. And then we can go deep into the earth and like open our feet chakras, which is harder sometimes than others. Go deep into the earth and ask for Mama Gaia's energy to come up into our feet, up through the roots of the trees, and really receive that really it's a simple energy that's very straight from Mother Earth.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that practice to be very helpful, as I worked in inpatient mental health for a time.
Mm-hmm.
And because I'm so connected to energy and and other realms, and I'm very aware of how to, do that in a way that is preserving your energy. So every time I would bike home from work, when I worked in the inpatient mental health hospital, I would have to like spend 30 seconds to a minute hugging a tree on my way home to release all of the energies that I had, that weren't mine.
Mm-hmm.
and give them away. And it's so important to do that practice on a regular basis, because so that those energies don't build up, and that we are really walking and existing within and from our own, intuition, our own womb space, our own authentic truth. And it's not covered up by, like someone's projection of us, or someone's, even like ancestor, or like, there's even that whole big conversation that we could have another time.
I know. And the earth loves dense energy. It loves dense energy. It loves, like, you can give it
so
all. It likes it. It helps it, actually. Like the core of the earth needs that. Like, that's why gravity is a thing.
Right.
Like it enjoys dense energy, so it's okay for us to give it away. Everything about communing, in nature is about giving and receiving. Because you get to practice giving and receiving in equal amounts, which is not always true in our connection with people.
Right.
But in nature, it's always a balance of giving and receiving. You go out there, the trees and the plants offer you oxygen, and you in exchange give them what they need, carbon dioxide. They do the whole photosynthesis thing, and we get to continue to exist here together. It's a very beautiful symbiotic relationship. And again, that's not something that we are able to cultivate with every human. The balance is not supposed to be equivalent in our human relationships. Because sometimes what you get from someone, you might, give to one person, and then the next person you meet might not even need what you have to offer, but they're there to give you something.
Exactly. And going back to the nature piece, like how much more in the moment can you be? How much more sensually pleasurable can you get than to have your face in a beautiful flower and
absolutely
smell the beauty and connection to the earth and to our brains, our memory systems that are so connected with the sense of smell. And yes.
Yeah, there's so much that's offered by even just a walk in, and if you happen to live in a city, and even just walking through the concrete jungle, there's still so much nature available to you.
Yes, that bird flying over.
Yes.
To be present with that other being, or finding that little sprout of a plant that you can go and say hi to.
Absolutely. Yes. And it's also a reminder of resilience, like you can be walking down just a regular street, and then here in the middle of the pavement is this broken concrete because this plant decided it wanted to live there.
Yes.
And by all logic, it seems impossible.
Mhm.
It's impossible that you could break through this concrete that appears so solid, but
Mhm.
here's this little tiny sprig that looks so fragile, but it was strong enough to buckle this concrete.
Right.
And we have that same kind of resilience available inside of us. So everything's such a great reflection of our own experience and our own capacity. I mean, good and bad, even the not so great stuff, that's also a reflection of our capacity.
Mhm.
Nature can appear very chaotic and destructive, as are humans.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
everything's good, always and always.
There's always
Yes.
a divine timing and a divine orchestration happening.
Absolutely. Well,
Mhm.
this was so good. Thank you so much. I've
Thank
enjoyed you
you.
so much. I am
Same.
super excited about the summit.
Yeah.
And I know that that the listeners will also get so much out of every conversation that you've had. I'm excited about listening to a lot of the conversations you've had.
Yay. Yes.
Yes,
Oh,
I'm
I'm
really,
so
really
excited.
excited about it. I think the
Mhm.
timing is just perfect, especially because I think, in the summer months, a lot of people disconnect from routine and they have more time and space to tune in. So I think
Yeah.
that I think the timing is really perfect, and I'm super excited.
Yes, thank you so much. And it's really a gift. It's a gift of untethered love from my heart to really
Mhm.
connect into the fact that, I have my own story of womb space trauma, for me, which was a C-section with my first, and this journey of how to heal womb space trauma and really empower ourselves in the process of, you know, trying to get pregnant, birthing, and parenting is really a gift of the new paradigm, of birthing the new paradigm. How can we really stay in our empowerment and work through the shit that we need to, because it's actually a gift and it's composting, and we're
Yes, it is.
seeds of our fullest selves. And so that's really what this event is all about. It's a free online event, I'm calling it. And yeah, birthing the new paradigm. So many amazing humans that I've been able to speak with, and such as yourself. I'm so happy to have this process to connect with people like yourself who have such deep reservoir of wisdom. So I really appreciate being able to connect with you through this process.
Well, thank you so much for being so generous with your time. I know that it takes a lot of energy and effort to put together a summit. It's nothing to sneeze at. So thank you for making all of this deliciousness available to so many people. And how great is technology that we're able to facilitate healing, global healing without ever moving out of our own homes.
It is. It's very much something to be grateful for.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yes.
The Sensuality Project is produced, edited, and hosted by me. Music by bensound.com. The Sensuality Project podcast is a production of StaceyHerrera.com.